History is full of great achievements, but it's also full of big, sometimes unbelievable, human mistakes. Mistakes that didn't just affect one person or one place, but shook entire countries, started wars, ended empires, and changed how we live today. In this video, we'll explore 8 of the biggest human errors ever made, each one a lesson in overconfidence, poor planning, or simply bad decision-making. These aren't made-up stories. They're real, they're shocking, and they all helped shape the world we know now. Let's begin. 1. The Titanic. Even God can't sink this ship. The Titanic was more than just a ship. It was a symbol of human pride and progress. In 1912, it was the largest and most luxurious ocean liner ever built. People believed it was unsinkable. That belief led to the first major mistake. The ship had only 20 lifeboats for over 2,200 passengers and crew, far less than what was needed in an emergency. On the night of April 14th, the Titanic hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic Ocean. The collision tore open its hull. Panic broke out. With not enough lifeboats, the crew had to decide who would live and who would die. Most of the lifeboats were lowered half empty. Many people, especially third-class passengers, were left behind. In the freezing water, over 1,500 people died, either from drowning or hypothermia. It was one of the deadliest peacetime maritime disasters in history. The real tragedy wasn't the iceberg. It was the arrogance of man. They believed nature couldn't defeat their creation. They were wrong. Afterward, shipbuilding and safety laws changed forever. But those lives were lost because people thought, nothing can go wrong. 2. The burning of the Library of Alexandria, losing the knowledge of the ancient world. The Library of Alexandria, built in Egypt around 300 BC, was one of the greatest treasures of the ancient world. It held hundreds of thousands of scrolls and manuscripts. Think of it like the internet of ancient times, full of books on science, medicine, astronomy, math, and philosophy. Scholars from all over the world came to learn there. Some say it had everything from the works of Homer to lost texts from ancient India, China, and Greece. But this incredible center of knowledge vanished due to one major human error. In 48 BC, during a war between Julius Caesar and the Egyptians, Caesar's soldiers accidentally set fire to the port of Alexandria. The flames spread and reached the library. The books made of papyrus burned easily. In just a few days, centuries of human learning were gone. The loss wasn't just physical. Imagine if all scientific discoveries and technology today suddenly vanished. That's what happened. Some historians believe humanity lost hundreds of years of progress because of this mistake, all because someone didn't control a fire. 3. Napoleon's invasion of Russia will be home by winter. Napoleon Bonaparte was the Emperor of France and one of the greatest military minds in history. By 1812, he had conquered most of Europe, but he made one terrible decision: invading Russia. In June 1812, Napoleon marched into Russia with over 600,000 soldiers. He believed he would win quickly and be back before winter, but the Russian army kept retreating, burning their own cities and farms so Napoleon's troops couldn't find food or shelter. By the time Napoleon reached Moscow, the city was almost empty and on fire. He waited for Russia to surrender, but they didn't. Winter arrived. Temperatures dropped below 30 degrees Celsius. Soldiers froze to death, starved, and got sick. Horses died. Supply lines broke. The army had to retreat. By the end, less than 100,000 soldiers made it back alive. Napoleon's empire began to collapse after that. His mistake? Underestimating nature and thinking war would be quick. Like many others, he thought he could not lose. But nature doesn't care about power or pride. 4. The Challenger explosion, ignoring warnings. The Challenger space shuttle disaster in 1986 is one of the saddest examples of a mistake caused by ignoring expert advice. It was a special mission because for the first time, a civilian, a school teacher named Krista McAuliffe, was going to space. On the morning of January 28th, it was very cold in Florida. Engineers from a company called Morton Thiokol, who built parts of the rocket, warned NASA that the cold might affect the O-rings, rubber seals that prevent gas leaks in the rocket boosters. But NASA leaders were under pressure. The launch had already been delayed several times. They didn't want to delay again. They pushed forward, ignoring the warnings. Just 73 seconds after liftoff, the shuttle exploded in front of live TV cameras. All 7 crew members were killed. The explosion shocked the world and destroyed public trust in NASA for years. This disaster showed how dangerous it can be to ignore expert warnings, especially under pressure. It was a mistake not of machines, but of people choosing to look the other way. 5. Hitler invading the Soviet Union, a war too big to win. In 1941, Adolf Hitler made a decision that changed World War II and history. He ordered an invasion of the Soviet Union, called Operation Barbarossa. Hitler believed his army could quickly defeat the Soviets, just as they had taken Poland and France. He thought the war would end in a few months, but Russia was too big, too cold, and too determined to lose. Soviet forces kept retreating, pulling the German army deeper into harsh terrain. As winter arrived, the German army had no warm clothing, poor supplies, and broken equipment. Soviet soldiers, used to the winter, fought back fiercely. Battles like the Siege of Leningrad and the Battle of Stalingrad turned the tide. Germany lost millions of soldiers. The Eastern Front drained Hitler's army, weakened the Nazi regime, and led to their final defeat in 1945. It was one of the worst military mistakes ever. Hitler's overconfidence and racism made him believe he could crush the Soviets easily. He was terribly wrong. In April 1986, workers at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine were running a test on one of the reactors. The test was poorly planned, and several safety systems were turned off. The workers didn't follow procedures, and the people in charge ignored warnings. At 1:23 a.m., Reactor 4 exploded. A huge amount of radioactive material shot into the sky. The explosion destroyed the reactor building, but the real disaster came afterward. The Soviet government delayed telling the public. People in nearby towns continued their daily lives, not knowing they were being exposed to deadly radiation. It took days to evacuate the nearby city of Pripyat. Firefighters and plant workers died horribly. Thousands more suffered long-term health effects, cancer, birth defects, and death. The Chernobyl disaster could have been prevented, but because of human error, secrecy, and pride, it became the worst nuclear accident in history. It was a clear warning to the world about what happens when people ignore rules and safety. Constantinople was one of the greatest cities in the world. It was the capital of the Byzantine Empire and had survived many attacks over hundreds of years. Its massive walls made it nearly impossible to conquer. But in 1453, the Ottoman Empire, led by Sultan Mehmed II, launched a massive attack. For weeks, the city held strong. But then, something small, yet deadly, happened. During the battle, someone inside the city forgot to lock a small gate called the Kirkoporta. Ottoman soldiers found it and entered quietly. Once inside, they opened the main gates for the rest of the army. The great city fell, the Byzantine Empire ended, and the Ottomans took control. That one open door ended a civilization that had lasted for over 1,000 years. It's a reminder that sometimes history changes not through battles, but through small mistakes no one notices until it's too late. In 1947, the British decided to leave India after nearly 200 years of rule. But before they left, they made one final decision: to split the land into two countries, India and Pakistan. This became known as Partition. The man who drew the new border, Sir Cyril Radcliffe, had never even been to India before. He had just 5 weeks to divide the land, people, and religions. The result was chaos. Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs suddenly found themselves on the wrong side of the new borders. Violence broke out everywhere. Trains full of refugees were attacked. People lost their homes, their families, and their lives. Over 1 million people died. Nearly 15 million were forced to leave their homes in one of the largest mass migrations in history. Partition was rushed, careless, and tragic. It created decades of tension between India and Pakistan that still exist today. What do all these stories have in common? They remind us that human error, whether from pride, pressure, laziness, or ignorance, can change everything. These mistakes were made by people who were confident, powerful, and trusted, but they still got it wrong. That's why history matters. It teaches us to think carefully, listen to others, and never believe we are too smart to fail. Every mistake is a warning. Every disaster is a lesson. Let's not repeat them. Thanks for watching. If this video taught you something new, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, which mistake surprised you the most?